How y'all doing today? It's your boy Jermaine from Eat Right Guys Nutrition and Fitness, back with another video, and I will be answering a question that was left in the comment sections of one of my previous videos. And so the question was, what's the difference between working as a renal dietitian for the company Fresenius compared to the company DaVita? And for those that don't know, my backstory is I worked for Fresenius for almost 5 years, and I'm currently working for DaVita, and I've been there for a little over a year. So the main difference between working in the two companies, from what I've experienced, is basically learning the software. Basically where to chart on your patients, where to find information, and things like that. The systems are going to be completely different. That's the biggest learning curve. That's what took me the longest. But in terms of like your day-to-day routine and month-to-month routine, is basically the same. But the biggest difference is learning the software, learning where to find information in the systems that they use. Now, there are some smaller differences, which I have some notes right here that I'll read off, but these are things that are not really that big of a deal, and you'll easily catch on to them and make adjustments. So the next difference between the two companies is the pharmacy. So Fresenius has their own pharmacy, and as a dietitian, you are considered the pharmacy manager. So some of the medications that the patients can get from the pharmacy usually deals with dietitians. So they're phosphorus binders, renal vitamins, if they're on a calcium mimetic such as Sensipar or Parsabiv, or if they're receiving some type of vitamin D analog such as Hectorol or calcitriol. Those are some of the medications that'll be on Fresenius pharmacy, and you're responsible for having like 40% of your patients signed up and using that pharmacy with Fresenius. Now, compared to DaVita, DaVita does not have a pharmacy. So they used to, from what I've been told, but now they don't. So you don't have to worry about that pressure that you do at Fresenius. So that was a huge difference, and that was one of the reasons why I was like, I think I might like DaVita a little more, because dealing with that Fresenius pharmacy was definitely a headache. Another difference is the lab value. So some of the labs are a little different for some reason. So in terms of like your albumin, your phosphorus, your potassium, your parathyroid hormone level, your hemoglobin, hematocrit, ferritin, all those labs are the same. The lab that's different is corrected calcium, or just total calcium. So with Fresenius, for some reason, in terms of calcium, they looked at total calcium as opposed to corrected calcium. Now, you should look at corrected calcium. And so their range for calcium was 8.5 to 10.0. Now with DaVita looks at corrected calcium, and their range is 8.4 to 10.2. So let's kind of go into your algorithms or your protocols. So another, I guess, thing that you have to do as a renal dietitian is manage the parathyroid hormone levels and calcium levels through vitamin D analogs as well as calcium mimetics. So in terms of vitamin D, you're probably going to use calcitriol, Hectorol, or Zemplar. So in terms of the protocols, which are signed off by the doctors, depending on the patient's labs, let's say somebody's on 0.5 micrograms of calcitriol, which is vitamin D. If their PTH or parathyroid hormone level increases to a certain amount, the protocol or algorithm, whatever you want to call it, would tell you increase it from 0.5 to 0.75, or increase it from 0.5 to 0.1, or it may tell you to decrease it. So those algorithms and the parameters in which you use to make those adjustments are going to be a little different compared from DaVita and Fresenius, because they use different parameters. It's kind of the same, but it's a little different. Also, stand alongside the vitamin D analogs. With Fresenius, when I first started working there in like 2014, my patients, we kind of did 50-50 Hectorol, which is an IV version of vitamin D. And then we had oral calcitriol, which was a pill that they would take throughout their dialysis treatments. Eventually, Fresenius phased away from Hectorol and kind of put everybody on the oral calcitriol. I think the calcitriol is a little cheaper than the Hectorol. But unless somebody had, but then I did have a few patients that were on Hectorol because they were allergic to calcitriol. Now working in DaVita, it's like completely opposite. So in center hemodialysis, like it's basically Hectorol. The only patients that I have on oral calcitriol are the ones that had parathyroidectomies and are having issues with hypocalcemia or low calcium levels. And that calcitriol, they take that to help them absorb more calcium along with Tums and stuff like that. But the vitamin D that we give in center is Hectorol. Now, in terms of the home patients, so my peritoneal dialysis patients and my home hemodialysis patients, they receive calcitriol, oral calcitriol. But in center, it's Hectorol at DaVita, and at Fresenius, it's oral calcitriol. Next, we can talk about supplements. So at any dialysis center you work at, they do offer oral supplements for certain patients, and it's based off of the albumin level. Albumin is a protein that's found in the blood. With Fresenius, when I first started working there, they had, I want to say like 4 or 5 different protein supplements that they offered. They offered Nepro, they offer Liquicell, they offer Zone Bars, which is like a protein bar. They offered this ice cream, and I think that's it. Now they just offer, I want to say Novasource, which is a Nestle product similar to Nepro, and they offer Liquicell. And in order for a patient to qualify for that, they have to have an albumin of 3.5 or less. And they stay on those supplements until they have an albumin of 4.0, 3 consecutive months. Now, in terms of DaVita, we use 3 different supplements. So we have Novasource, the drink, we have the Liquicell, and we have the Zone Bars. But our guidelines are patients can get on those supplements, or they can be eligible if they have an albumin of 3.7 or less. So at DaVita, more patients are eligible for in-center nutritional supplements. And it's basically the same way as Fresenius. They can remain on those supplements until they don't want it anymore, or they have an albumin of 4.0 or greater for 3 consecutive months. All right, now we can kind of get into another difference, which I think this is a big difference. I think at DaVita, you have, as a dietitian, you have more room to elevate in a company if you want. One big difference is with Fresenius, every Fresenius clinic has a clinic manager. And at Fresenius, these clinic managers are nurses. At DaVita, you don't have to be a nurse to be a clinic manager. They call them facility administrators at DaVita. So my current facility administrator or clinic manager actually started out as a secretary, and she kind of worked her way up to that. I actually have a dietitian that I work with that's in my group. She's actually got hired on as a facility administrator. And so you can be a social worker and get hired on at that. So at DaVita, you can become a facility administrator or manage a whole clinic, even though you're not a nurse. I wouldn't recommend it because I feel like being a facility administrator, you need to be able to cannulate patients, and you need to know the nursing side of it, because every facility administrator I work with, at one point, they had to work on the floor. They had to stick patients with needles. They had to work the machines and everything like that. You have to deal with if a patient codes, CPR and all that stuff, know what to do. Me as a dietitian, I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. But if that's something that you want to do, you want to get in a management position, I feel like there's more opportunities in DaVita as compared to Fresenius. The next one I would say is tuition reimbursement. At Fresenius, the tuition reimbursement was a little more. It was like $4,500 a year for somebody outside of a nurse. I know nurses got paid more. I think nurses got like $5,500 if you went to school for nursing. With DaVita, I think tuition reimbursement is like $3,000 a year. And then my last difference between the two companies would be like medical insurance. So you may have Fresenius use Blue Cross Blue Shield, and you may have DaVita using something else. But sometimes they'll switch year to year, insurance companies, but that's not really that big of a difference. You'll probably be paying the same amount and you'll get the same coverage with whatever company you work for. So that's about it. Those are all the little differences that I can think of, but I feel like most of this stuff is minute. The biggest difference is just learning the software, learning where to chart, where to look up patient information, where to do the plan of cares. That's going to be your biggest learning curve. But if you're already working in a dialysis company, whether it's Fresenius, US Renal, DaVita, and you want to switch to another dialysis company, it's going to be a smooth transition. It's not going to be a huge learning curve. And you know what I'm saying? Do it, especially if you're getting paid more money. So hopefully this video was helpful, and I'll see y'all for the next one.